For someone who's never heard about synthetic audiences, explain what Electric Twin does.
We create your audience and basically put it at your fingertips. Any business wants to understand like their customer base. With a synthetic audience, it's basically alive and you can talk to it as much as you want, whenever you want. It's like going from old postal letters to video calls. You know, in the old day, you want to find out something about, you know, your customers. You commission a survey, you wait a few weeks, you know, the letter's in the mail, and you wait until it gets delivered and you read it, and it's a static snapshot of information from them. What we provide is basically a video call. You can just constantly talk to it, you know, and what you hear will then change what you ask next. And so it's not a conversation with your audience. It is driven by AI, but it's based off real data. So you get a sort of living simulation of your customers.
What's your mission? Why are you doing this?
What's my mission? My mission is not to get bored. What's Electric Twin's mission? Yeah, we want to create a world where the better decisions are possible. You know, help people make better decisions. Be in any field, be that a business trying to sell a product or a government trying to come up with a health intervention. You know, it'd be fantastic if the tool could be used in time to like genuinely improve people's lives, be that their ability to enjoy something in a consumer space or actually make people healthier through like living happier or, you know, improving the way in which they eat. And that all of that's possible through a platform like ours.
You started Electric Twin a couple of years ago. Since you started, what has changed? What in the market per se? Like what's gotten easier, for example? Has anything gotten harder?
We only started... Ben and I had our first beer in June 2023. So it's nearly 3 years ago now. And we set the business up at the end of 23. And in the 18 months before then, there'd been this massive leap in generative AI, but things have leapt sort of exponentially since then. So there's been a huge shift in the way, like technologies that are available for businesses and the way in which people use them. And if you look at the way in which we work internally, I mean, it's completely different from how it was when we set up. Yeah, I think with 20 people in the business, we probably got the output of a team of like 80 that would have been in 2023. I think we should have an output of 100. I think it's just, you know, and even for an AI native business, it's super difficult to do that. So the AI has fundamentally changed. You know, it's a completely different way of working. And so that means that the way in which we're selling to people has shifted too. So people's expectations, their faith, their ability to trust and their willingness to trust in AI has gone from 2023 when a few people were experimenting with, you know, GPT 3.5 and getting it to like write a poem in the style of William Wordsworth about rap to like actually doing a whole host of tasks for them now. So when we went out to raise money, like most people thought we were mad. Whereas now this is a genuine thing. People understand that what we said was possible is possible. And that's shifted where the market is. We no longer have to sort of spend like 2 or 3 sessions talking people through about how AI might be able to do what we're doing. Quite often we're coming into a warm, people that understand, have heard about this as a concept and have approached us as, you know, a credible provider in the space.
I imagine there's a lot of pushback on, can I trust this? Because synthetic audiences is still quite a new concept. Now, if you fast forward another couple of years, do you think people will start trusting synthetic audiences implicitly?
Yeah, I think we're on this, we're on an iterative user journey that's just going to evolve. So people's willingness to trust AI and some of the AI outputs is just going to keep on moving and it will get deeper and deeper and deeper. So like we're seeing people use the platform for pretty important decisions now, but I think this is going to get, you know, it's going to, this idea that, I just think we're just going to see it shift. And it's hard for us to build a product because what people are using the platform for now might be quite different. And we'll just see it go deeper and deeper and deeper within organizations and used for more and more decisions, which is super exciting for us.
Tell me a bit more about the users of Electric Twin and what does it enable them to do?
Yeah. So most of our users at the moment sit in research departments. In some businesses, you see like senior execs use it because, you know, like I use it all the time, obviously, if I'm like testing something, providing something, demoing stuff in a pub. But, you know, I think CEOs in a business, execs, heads of strategy have a need to be able to understand the world around them. It's like just fundamental. Now, a lot of execs will sort of fly by the seat of their pants, or some might think they have got like a Fingerspitzengefühl, you know, which you will get that. Yeah. But they have that sort of like sense for the world around them. But it's complete bollocks most of the time. You know, sometimes we'll have a pretty narrow view. So having something like Electric Twin really helps ground their opinion and decisions. So I think in time we will see this used across teams, but at the moment it's largely research teams, and we're going through that shift. And we can do that through like some product iterations, like templating. So you're letting out quite controlled environments where people can do experiments, and I think that's a really exciting bit of what's going to go on in the next couple of years.
Tell me something fun you've used it for at Electric Twin, or what's the last thing you did with it?
Something fun. I mean, occasionally I'll just like run mock surveys to like tease people about like teams they support, or with like military friends about like which unit might be better than others, or like if I'm having an argument with my family or my wife or my daughter, and I just
what should be for dinner?
Yeah, just do stuff. So yeah, occasionally you put like just a really quirky idea into a focus group and see how people react. Yeah.
I mean, we did, what did we do? Pancake Day. What was the best flavour? I was very disappointed because it wasn't Nutella. So obviously it's wrong.
It is funny what people come up with, which actually, it just shows how surprised you can be by normal people, as in the sense that other people think in very different ways. Because often when you get a surprising result, then you check and you're like, oh, actually, that could be right. Yeah, it's just a really, it's a good way of like showing value from the platform.
There's one question I always have. It's like when you see, so for example, I've run some ads through Electric Twin to kind of see what ads we should be running, and sometimes my gut reaction is like that's the audience hasn't picked the most interesting ad.
Yeah.
And so should you then go with what most people would have picked out of the options you've given it, or with your gut reaction to, because that might be the most interesting piece, because maybe the audience picked the safest thing.
Yeah, I think audiences behave different ways, and that's the whole advantage of the platform. It allows you to tailor your research to the audience that you want to understand. It's not just like the whole population of the UK, because for most people, like unless you're a political party, you don't, even for political parties, you're not really engaging the whole population of the UK. You want to understand the people that are going to vote, which is only like 50% of people, or the 60% who might do it. But like in a business, so like they're really good at, like the Times, when they chose the podcast title, they went for the business. When I first heard that, I was like, really? And then you're like, actually, yeah, I can kind of see that. But, if that resonates with the people that they want to listen to a podcast, then that's great. It doesn't really matter if like what my mother would think about it, but she's not going to listen to that business podcast, and that's what the platform allows you to focus in on the segments that really matter for you.
Tell me a bit more about the constraint that Electric Twin removes, or essentially the problem that it removes for its users.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one. So when we came in, so in 2023, Ben knew a lot about data, knew a lot about polling. But
who's Ben?
Ben Warner, Sorry, I thought you should know. Yeah, so Ben Warner, Dr. Ben Warner, my co-founder, knew loads about data, knew loads about like polling, so the way in which you use research companies, but actually not a huge amount about how businesses use research. And obviously I knew bog all. My experience for like data for decision making had been like in government and in the military in terms of like military intelligence. So like classic, founders like stumbling in and trying to build a business with us, where actually we ended up being led into an area where we didn't have a huge amount of experience. We've been lucky to bring people in and have built it out. But we assumed at the time, and actually interestingly, like loads of startups in the space assumed at the time, that really the two big problems you're going to solve were like cost and time, in the sense that traditional surveys cost shitloads and they take weeks to do. But as we go deeper and deeper and we see the platform rolled out, we see people using it, it's really the scale that people want to go. It's the depth that they want, the number of queries that they want to field. That's the real problem it's unlocking. So people are going from doing like dozens or 100 questions of an audience to thousands. It's quantum leap. And that's why I say it's like thinking about going from like old letters to a video call. It goes from this like static, short burst of data to like a stream of an engagement. And I think we're probably only at the beginning now, where people, as we be able to unlock, and also as we take human out of the loop in some things, we'll be able to have lots of processes running. So you almost have like a continual live engagement, as opposed to something where some people need to go in and type. So I think it's really exciting, that, and it's something that's actually surprised us. We've got we've got users doing thousands of queries now, consistently, which
And
is
they're
really
sort of they're
interesting.
chipping away
Yeah.
at refinement,
Yeah.
basically.
So they're no longer having to sit there. It must be depressing in a research team in the old days to be like, you sit there and you're just getting like, no, no, no. Okay, we might be able to afford this one. No. And now it's just like, just fire them all through and support everything you get asked to do.
What's a use case that makes you think this is exactly what we build Electric Twin for?
Yeah. Well, I mean, this week we just did this press release where the Times announced a few things that he used the platform for. And I loved it because I had sat at home like 2 weeks ago. My daughter's 13, just got her first mobile phone, and I'd set her up on on the Times with a bonus account, which is a feature they've got there, a bit like in Spotify where you can share logins. And I didn't know they had that, and I was really positive because before I used to get really frustrated because whenever my wife was like reading the Times, it would stop me from doing it because it only allows one person on one platform to read it and I'd done it. And then I come in and I read the draft thing from the Times, and it goes, well, this year we were looking at how we could improve retention on the platform. We did a survey through Electric Twin. We identified bonus accounts as the most positive thing there. We reprioritized our roadmap. We rolled it out, and we've seen a 7% increase. And I was like, boom, like that. I really like that you've used Electric Twin for quite an important decision. But also, I know it's true because I've done it. I've seen it myself, and I love the fact that that's something that I've benefited from before I knew that we'd been part of the process. Yeah.
Tell me about the role of survey data and why does that matter at Electric Twin?
Yeah, we're really like seed data. So we ground our audiences with high quality seed data. What we're not doing is like have this like we can draw any audience out of thin air. We're not it's not an LLM generated audience where we go like, GPT, 5. Imagine you are like a fat 48-year-old man that lives in London, with a bald head. What would you think about X? Because some people do that with models. What we do is we'll go out, we'll find a fat 40-year-old man in London, and we'll ask him what he thinks about
football.
Well, I don't think about football, but we'll ask him what he does, and then we use that data, that grounded evidence data as the basis for the populations that we build. And that we just think that drives a much higher level of accuracy, a much higher level of nuance, and it gives users the tailored experience that they really want.
Does that limit who Electric Twin can work with?
No, I think in time we'll be able to blend the Electric Twin platform with a sort of volume of data sets. So you can go in, you won't even have to choose it. You'd say, like, I want to understand X, Y, and Z. I want to understand what, young children would think about, a new flavor of chicken wings. And we'll be able to run those experiments in the platform, selecting the right audiences, using the right data to meet your needs and then support you. So I think in time we'll be working with a whole range of businesses. In fact, I'm super interested about that. It's just at the moment in our first couple of years, we've ended up working with larger enterprises because there's a whole load of factors why that makes sense.
What kinds of decisions are the users of Electric Twin making that they couldn't make before?
There's a scale of questions that you can do. There are some queries that you really can't ask people. So for businesses, we've seen this. We know major retailers don't test their Christmas campaigns because they don't want it to get leaked in social media. In our platform, it's completely secure. You could ask them very, very sensitive issues. So there's a whole class of sensitive, either commercially sensitive or, it might be potentially controversial, or they might be very risky a position, or it might even be like contingency planning against a scenario that might never happen. They don't want to share with people. That you can ask all of those within the platform and get a very good response. So there's a really clear category there. And then there's just a scale, because I get bored after about 5 queries on a survey and then just tick the middle option often. But, a synthetic Alex will ask 500. So you can start to really sort of tease down and get into the permutations in a way that you just can't with real people. So there's also a different form of engagement. And the first generation of the products in this space are kind of synthetic versions of real world research. But they're going to be irrelevant soon. And you want to get into these sophisticated, very different forms of understanding and interrogating humans, which we're in the process of building. We have fielded some of these capabilities. You can see more and more of that as you go forward.
Tell me how electric twin works exactly. So what's under the hood?
I can't do like the secret sauce. Well, the best way of thinking about it is for any audience, we'll build out like a plethora of agents. So representing, a mirror of real people. Around them, we will put a whole load of data points. We then have a process by way in which we simulate how they would make decisions. We place them into a decision-making context, and then we see how they would behave, and then we interpret those results and we present those results to the user. I mean, which is an incredibly simplistic way of describing a very, very complex process.
And when you talk to customers, what are some of the pushbacks you get most often?
Yeah, it varies from people to people. I mean, like it used to start with like, how could we ever trust this? I can never get my head around it. Very rarely now, you occasionally get someone who goes, I just can't understand how this can work. But often actually it becomes quite nuanced of people are actually looking to really understand and like how they can grow their trust. And but we've had random pushback. I mean, our favorite pushback is from, one of our clients. They're work in the fuel business, and we were like modeling out truck people for them, and they wanted to do these like synthetic focus groups, and they had like certain segments of people, one of which was truck drivers, and then they started complaining that like the truck drivers were swearing too much. So we went in and like tweaked it and turned down the swearing a bit, but then actually looked at the data, and which is basically like real engagements with truck drivers, and it's like, no, it's spot on. This is like that's how truck drivers speak. They will swear.
Effing blind.
Effing blind. I was going to put some fruity language in, but it's probably not very helpful. But so there's stuff like that's really cool, where actually you're trying to make the platform more user friendly but less realistic. It's the same for focus groups. Like actually, when you're making people authentic, they're very incoherent. They make loads of grammatical mistakes. They don't speak in complete sentences. It's quite a challenge. And LLMs, if you ask a sort of an LLM to do that, it's the same with the writing style. It's just not the way that real people speak or write.
Do they say, look, here's the thing?
Yeah, they just don't drop in ums and ahs, and but that's how people speak, and they want that, which is really cool.